I hadn't showered in 4 days. I hadn't
Mm.
brushed my teeth I was just waking up, staying on my bed, be on the phone, sleep, rinse, wash, repeat. Hello everyone. I'm happy to be back. Welcome back to my channel. Today, myself and Benro here, I'll give him a moment to introduce himself, but both of us will be sharing on something that we have in common, job loss from last year. We both were laid off from our jobs last year at different times. I think his was just a few weeks after mine. But yeah, we're going to talk about all things layoffs, and we're hoping that our story encourages, motivates someone out there who is going through a layoff, who just lost their job, or who is in the job market looking for a job. And we're hoping that your comments would also inspire us to talk more about some of the things that we may leave out in the course of our discussion. We're also going to be as vulnerable as we can. It's our story, and we will try as much as possible to be as detailed as we can. So, yes, Miro, over to you. It's nice to have you here to share your own story alongside me.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very much. My name is Dari, and as you would normally call me, Road. I mean, that's my last name, but let's just leave that. That's a story for another day.
Exactly.
But yeah, so yeah, my name is Dari once again. I'm happy to be here. It's my pleasure to come here to share my experience, talk about my experience losing my job sometime last year. That was 2024. It was tragic. It was so unexpected. It was, a lifetime experience. It was something that I would never forget for the rest of my life. And yeah, like she's rightly said, it's gonna be a very great session. It's gonna be wonderful, trust me, because it's gonna be a great opportunity for us to share some of our experiences, talk about some of the lessons we learned, and how we've improved some of the trauma struggles that we've had, even after that. So yeah, stay tuned and listen to us as we kind of share experiences.
Stay tuned. Thank you. Thanks for that introduction. I really loved it. Okay, I'm just gonna ask you questions. I would also answer the questions myself. And yeah, we'll go right into the first question. Where
Absolutely.
say that again?
I said absolutely. Go ahead, please.
Okay. All right. Where were you when you got the news of your layoff?
Well, that's a good question. So, like, life would always happen. You are never prepared for things like this. It was just like every other day. I woke up very early in the morning. I did all the necessary preparation I was supposed to do, and I drove down to work. And just to touch on, some a little bit of backstory, I recently moved from one job to the other. I resigned from my old job, picked up a new role, which I thought was, actually good for me at that particular time. And yeah, it was quite a good experience at the beginning. I was so excited moving into a new position, and I was still within my probationary period. So I woke up and I was preparing for work that day. I had a very, good preparation. I got to work. I was at my desk. Everything was going well until sometime late in the afternoon when my manager called me. I was actually on the production floor because I kind of work on the production floor. I was I was done with whatever I was doing on my computer. I was just, trying to get on the production floor and see what exactly was going on. And I got called by my manager out of the blues that I needed to have a meeting with the HR. And it was quite interesting to know that, okay, this is something I wasn't expecting. It wasn't something I looked forward to. I wasn't expecting anything. So I wasn't really scared at first, but it was kind of strange that I got called by the manager to a meeting with the HR. Anyways, I initially, because I'd had some previous issues, I reported to the HR. I thought maybe that was the discussion I was expecting to have with them. Little did I know that it was going to be one of the saddest news of my life. I walked into the room. I was asked question, how do I feel about my position? What do I think about the job? What can I say about the job? Everything was really fine. Like, it felt like a random conversation, like every random conversation you expect your manager to have with you, until I was told that by my manager, that she would no longer continue with me for reasons best known to her. And that was quite tragic, to be fair, at a time when, there was a lot going. It was a time the economic meltdown in Canada really started. it was so difficult getting a different job, and it was just a time of my life. I was shocked, I was sad. For a minute, my brain was frozen. I felt like the only question that kept on coming to my mind at that moment was, okay, so where am I going to start from? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a little bit about it.
Okay. Thanks for sharing. It's interesting that I'm just learning some of the details, right? But it's so
Yeah,
sad to hear that they actually put you through the emotions of asking you about your job, asking you like what would the answer to that do to them when they knew that they were going to lay you up? Like cut the chase and go straight to the point. So why were you anyway, I'm getting angry. I'm getting angry, so I'll stop there. I would, answer that question, and then we'll move on to the
yeah.
next question. Before I go on, how long had you been on this job before the news?
Okay, so like I said, I was still within my probationary period, and as we all know, probationary period in Canada mostly lasts for 3 months.
Okay.
So I was just going into my second month of the probationary period when
Oh,
I got
okay.
here.
Okay. Okay. All right. I will answer mine. A little bit of background, like Beru has
Hmm.
shared. So for me, I also just got a new job, but for me it was
Yeah,
6 months. This was my 6 month on the job. I had gotten the job. I was so excited. I
yeah,
had left Toronto to Perth, a small town that I had never been to before. So this was for me, it was going to be a great start to a new journey. It was going to be, of course, I was going to be paid more than I was paid previously. I was excited to be able to save, to be able to start living the Canadian dream, all that
yeah,
excitement. And then I moved, of course, like I said, moved from Toronto, left all the friends that I had known since I got to Canada. I lived only in Toronto. So I moved to this town where I knew nobody. It was just the job, just for the job. And I thought it was worth it because, I mean, there were certain perks that the job came with. I moved. It was a struggle. I wouldn't lie. The first 6 months, it was a lot because it was a startup. I was the general manager for that startup. So I was putting in on my all. I was sending emails at 3 a.m. I was working Saturdays and Sundays. It was a stressful job. I was driving to get clients, like driving to far places to get clients. Anyway, I'm going to go on to the story, the question. Where was I when I got the news? I was, I woke up on a normal work day. Woke up, I was so excited because I had just sealed a deal with one of the big pharmacies. I don't want to call any brand. One of the big pharmacies in Canada. I was excited because we had been, hoping to seal that deal for months. So I was so excited. I woke up, I showered, got dressed, so happy. And then I got a message from my boss because we had planned that we're going to have our virtual meeting. We used to have virtual meetings every week. Now, bear in mind that my boss had a separate job, a full time job. So we used to meet virtually every week just to touch base and, so that she can know what is going on. So this time, the meeting, she sent me a text in the morning. As soon as I woke up, I saw the text. Oh, can we meet in person instead at the accountant's? I thought it was strange because for the past 6 months we had never met in person. But I thought maybe she was just with the accountant. She wanted us to look through some books. I'm like, okay. And then I'm sure, for sure. And then please bear in mind that she reminded me to bring my laptop. She's like, please come with your laptop. I'm like, for sure. I mean, I'm gonna have a meeting with you. Why not? I'll bring my laptop. And so I drove out again. I had a company car that was given to me by for a company car, as the name says. And so I drove the company car to this location. As soon as I got to the location, I made a joke. I'm like, oh, because we didn't have a brick and mortar office. I made a joke. I'm like, oh, do we have an office space here now? And she smiled and just ushered me in, told me to sit down. I sat down, and then she was like, oh, this is going to be a difficult conversation. I didn't read any meaning to it. I thought, oh, because we're looking for clients, it was going to be a discussion regarding clients, a discussion to talk about how we needed to make money, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, oh, like, go for it in my mind. I was like, go for it. And she opened her laptop, asked me for my laptop. I brought up my laptop, obviously. And then she said, can I see the laptop? She took the laptop and then she started reading a script. Your employment from so 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 and so company has been terminated without cause, effective immediately. I'm smiling now, but at the time it was like a dream. I was like, what? I couldn't process it. And then she goes on to say, can I have the laptop? And then she goes on to say, can I have the pin? I gave her the pin. I was just moving like a robot, like a zombie, basically. And then she said, oh, I can give you some minutes to remove your personal things from the laptop. I'm like, oh, for sure. And then she you know what? I'm gonna go on to the because I think I'm
Next
touching.
question. Yeah.
Yes, I think I'm touching on the next question because the first question was
Yeah.
where were you when you got the news? So I was at the accountant's office, supposed accountant's office. Anyway, the next question is
Yeah.
what was the first thought that ran through your mind?
Okay. So honestly, it's hard to describe that feeling, and it's never a good feeling. Let's be honest. But what was the first thought? Honestly, for me, it was mixed. It was different emotions at the same time, right? It was more of, okay, so is this actually happening? Is this a dream? Like the first thought, like to be fair, the only question that kept on popping up in my head that I could still remember was, what am I going to do from here? Like, what is the next step from here? Because either way, like, it was looking like a dream, but obviously I knew it wasn't a dream anymore. Like, I heard what I heard correctly. I got the necessary documentation to, to that effect. So it was not something I could say, oh, maybe I was daydreaming or something. So yeah, it was quite shocking. It was sad, but the only question that kept on coming to my mind was, what am I going to do from here? Because that was the only thing my mind kept on processing. And to think that you're in a country where your bills are constantly waiting, you have a lot of things to do, you have plans ahead of time, so many things that you might have planned out before that particular time. So it was more of, what am I going to do? So my head was just looking for solution. I was looking for a way out on the spot.
Oh,
So I would say
okay.
that was my experience.
That's interesting. It's interesting to hear your own perspective because I was blank. I was blank. Nothing came to mind. In fact, she asked me a question. She said, do you have questions? I said, no. Then she asked me, would you like me to drop you off or call you a taxi? Because of course I had driven the company car, and what what that meant was she was going to take the company car keys from me and the car itself. So I was blank the whole time. When she told me to she gave me a moment to take out some of the things, my personal things from the laptop. I couldn't. I was so blank, so numb that I couldn't do anything. No questions. I was numb. I was shocked. Anyway, I'm going to move on because we've touched
Yeah,
on
that's sad. It's expected though. Like, you would expect anyone to react like every other shocking experiences that you could experience in life. To be fair, like I said before when we had this discussion, nothing really prepares you
prepared.
for something like
Yeah.
that. You're coming in contact with an information that you weren't really prepared for, and it's just like hearing the sad news about losing someone. It's a very similar experience. You go
Yeah,
through all the stages of grief. you
absolutely.
know it's always shocking, and I think employers should actually find a better way to always convey such information.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more or better because really, what would it cost you as an employer to give a week or 2 weeks of notice? What would it cost you to
Mm,
give? And if this person was a good employee, what would it cost you to give at least a month of notice, really? But again, I'm not in HR. There are probably certain
yeah.
consequences to giving people more time. Maybe they are as scared that you burn down their
The
company or
organization
the
leading up to.
organization. So I kind of get it, but again, I cannot totally get it. And I really hope that they find a better way, or there are regulations, either by province, by the country, regulations to say that layoffs should be communicated beforehand. Anyways,
Yeah.
we're gonna go. into the next set of questions. What was your strongest emotion in the first 24 hours?
Okay, so good question. So to be fair, just like I said in the previous question, I would say it was a lot of feelings. Like usually when you come in contact with a shocking news, or something that you weren't prepared for, or you weren't preparing for at any point in time, it's always a shocker, right? Where you get to feel like different emotions at the same time. Like if I could remember correctly, that particular day, right after the news, it was strange because I had to drive home at noon, because I got the news at noon, just after my break, right? So it was kind of strange that I needed to leave work. I wasn't sick. I wasn't, I
Mm,
didn't call in sick. I didn't tell them I was going to do half day. So it was a completely different, itinerary for the day. So it was quite difficult. It was quite difficult for me to admit to you that was happening at that spot. And to be fair, I tell people that was one of the longest drives I've ever had in my entire life.
can imagine.
Driving home, using the highway for another 30, 40 minutes drive from
Oh,
work
wow.
was one of the longest drives I've ever had in my life. It was lots of emotions. I remember calling friends, families, trying to convey the information to them. Like they were as shocked as I was. And yeah, I would say it was lots of emotions. It was hard to believe. And it was a Friday. So it ruined the entire weekend for me, I
Oh,
would say.
yeah. Yeah.
I needed support from friends. I needed to process the emotions, and I would say it was more of pain, hurt, disappointment, and
All in
lots of things.
one.
Yeah.
Mm. Hmm. Like in fact, I think I just want to say I'm sorry you had to go through that, and I'm sorry for myself that I had
Well,
to go through
I'm
that.
sorry you had to go through it. So,
Because really, as you're speaking, I'm just thinking of my own emotions. I was numb for the most part. I was still shocked, but like I said, I had to go back home in a taxi. Imagine driving a particular car out and then coming back in a taxi. I didn't have an accident, but
yeah,
everything was stripped off me. Basically, the laptop, company car, stripped off me. So
yeah,
I came home and went straight to my bed, lay down on one part of my bed, and then started calling friends. Not a lot, maybe one or two. I called an auntie, and that was it. And
yeah,
after I spoke to them for a few hours, it dawned the emotion. Of course, it now dawned on me again. I had to be by
yeah,
myself, and it was the longest. I think I was even exhausted. I don't think I stayed up late. Usually, I stay up late, but this time I crashed out. I slept off, and the next
yeah.
morning, that's within
The
24 hours,
weight, the
right?
weight of the pain, the weight of the emotions then come fully, because that's when you're able to like come to terms with it that okay, this actually happened.
Yes.
Right?
Ye-
At first you go into denial phase where you're like, okay, maybe it didn't happen. A part of you norms, like goes numb.
Mm-hmm.
You're trying to tell yourself that okay, nothing, it's not that bad, it's part of life. You can actually comfort yourself at the initial phase of the shock. But as you start to like, as you start to process the emotions, you start to process the reality of the situation, you start to feel the emotions more, you start to understand that yeah, this is not
It's
a
not a
movie,
joke.
this is not some sort of dream,
Yeah.
this is something that happened. And like you said, you were stripped of everything. And that reminds me of my own experience too. I remember going to work with my personal laptop, my company phone. It was more like I went back home empty. It felt so different.
Yeah.
I came back home looking everywhere like the same phone I used to come home with is no longer with me. The laptop was no longer with me. Everything was just looking different. It looked like my entire life was just set on a different tone.
Exactly.
And it was such a tragic event. It was such a tragic situation. I keep telling people nothing ever prepares you for a sudden job loss, especially in a country like this.
Yes. Ah, as we're talking, I'm remembering it, and it's sad that we had to go through those emotions. Like you said, it was denial. When I woke up the next morning, it now dawned because I had there's no work to go to, there's no place to
Mhm.
go to. So There was no
Yeah.
even need to shower. There was no need. So I just remained on that bed, one side of the bed. Then I started, I think I got not hungry, but thirsty. And so I remember I ordered McDonald's large pop, two big large, because I don't drink alcohol. So maybe I would have resorted to alcohol at that time, but that's what I felt. But
Hmm.
I got pop soda, gulped down like two large Sprite and Coke, I remember. Anyway, but it dawned, truly dawned that I had lost my job. And
Yeah.
anyway, we've spoken about how we broke the news to friends and family. Was there any part of you that felt free?
Okay, so if I'm trying to understand the question correctly, do you mean like the part of me that felt free after letting it out, or
Free from
uh
baggage of the job, free from this job was so stressful. Like for me, it was so
oh, okay.
stressful. So this job was so
Yeah.
stressful, and well, it has gone. Was there that part, or did it come later? Because mine, I think, came later. So for you, was
Yeah,
there?
absolutely. So again, like just like every other job, especially when you're moving into a new job,
Mm-hmm.
newly, it comes with its own struggle. Not
Yeah.
necessarily because you do not understand what you're supposed to do, but just because you're moving into a new environment, you're meeting new people, you're doing a new job entirely. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, maybe not entirely, but at least you're doing something, you're doing the same thing in different environments.
Mm-hmm.
And for most reasons, like for most people, they move into a new company or new organization or new job for advancement. So when you're advancing, it comes with a bit of struggle. You have to get used to the process, you have to change your routine, you have to get used to the people. All of
Absolutely.
these come with its own struggle,
Stress.
right? You have to find a way to, be friendly to people. You're creating impression basically the first 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
So all of those things alone could be a sort of mental stress on individual, especially if it's not
Very
something that comes to
correct.
you naturally. So for me, it was more of trying to put up a good performance, trying to be, my natural self in the best way I can. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I could at that particular time. And it felt like you were trying so hard to create impression, to be the best on your job, to get the people on your side, to get them to understand that you are the most appropriate person for that job.
Candidate.
And it,
Mm-hmm.
it got it got cut off I mean, immediately. Obviously, you feel like some burden was taken off you because you don't have to wake up as early as you have to in the morning. The whole
Exactly.
stress of coming back home, figuring out what to eat, how to prepare again for the
I
next day.
know.
All of those things went off. I felt a bit relieved, but at the same time, I would say it was a bittersweet experience because it was more of me getting relief from stress, the work stress, but also coming to the fact that you know my income was taken off. I needed to like get myself back on track as soon as possible. And like I said before, it's a mix of emotions. Like definitely you're going to be going through stages of grief.
Agree. Yeah.
Obviously you're going to be walking yourself through denial phase. At some point I will feel upset,
Anger.
extremely angry.
Yeah.
At some point I was bargaining, doing all the bargaining process, like, oh, like a lot of back and forth in my head. And
Absolutely.
also there was depressive phase of it where I was just sad. It felt hopeless. That moment felt hopeless. I was like, okay, this
Absolutely.
is the first time in my entire life that I would ever be in this country without a job.
Yeah.
So I felt hopeless. I felt less of myself. It felt like I was pushed down from the top of a cliff, right?
Mhm.
So I started to withdraw from people, started to withdraw from my regular, like my routine,
Okay.
just because it felt like my life was taking a new turn. And eventually I got to the acceptance phase. That was when I realized, okay, what happened already. I didn't feel sad anymore. I didn't feel upset anymore. I didn't bargain. I didn't try to think about rationalize the situation anymore. I accepted that it had happened. And I knew the next thing for me to do was to get myself together, put my things together, start rolling out application. And that was when I picked up my confidence. That was when I started, developing confidence to put up my resume. Although it was quite stressful still, it was at a time where there was almost no job. It felt like there was really no job in Canada at that point.
Yeah.
People started suggesting different options.
Mm.
They were offering low, menial jobs. I had to
Yeah.
do some funny jobs I couldn't really talk about. It was very strange. Even $10 from friend, $5 from friend felt like a whole
Oh.
lot of money because it was so different. It was so difficult to get someone to even get you something.
Yeah.
And based on my nature, I'm not someone that would go out there to ask people
Ask.
for help, right? So it was difficult for me to ask for help, not because I couldn't get people that would help, but because I wasn't used to being in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
So it comes with so many struggles. It comes with so many challenges. Yes, was I relieved? I was relieved, but not without the mental, stress that still comes with it.
Yeah. Thanks. I love the way you answered it. But how long did you, this is me preparing another question from my head. How long
Yeah.
from the time when you lost your job to the time when you actually accepted? Like how long was it?
Mhm.
Can you put a time frame?
To be fair, I would say it took me, I would say, a period of 1 to 2 months,
Okay.
right? And also coupled with the fact that I had other personal issues in my life at that particular point
That's
in time,
correct.
it made it even more difficult to accept, because when you have other things you're battling or you're struggling with
Yeah.
alongside, the issues,
Job loss.
the old job loss,
Yeah.
it makes it more complicated. It's like you're dealing with a complex mix of emotion,
True.
and you're trying to walk through the entire phase of grief, and at the same time you have other troubling situations around you. But I would
True.
say under ideal condition, and it varies with different people, but for me, I would say, for me it was more of about 2 months. At least the first 2 months I was recharging my mind, and what can I do, how do I handle this situation. It was more of me trying to be strategic. I struggled to accept it at first,
Mm-hmm.
but over time I started to realize it's a reality, right? And the more challenging aspect of it was when I started to see people I was living with going to work. Like, it was more of, okay,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm not a lazy man. I do not intend to be a lazy man, right? So staying back at home, all of those things kind of like pulled me back. Maybe if I was alone with just the support of family and friends, it might have made it easier. But again, I wouldn't say mine was the longest. I would say I kind of even bounced out of it faster, because I had friends who were going through the same experience about the same time.
Yeah.
So having people who were going through the same thing kind of gave me that confidence that it wasn't just about me.
You're not
It was the
alone
current state
in the
of the
struggle.
economy and
Mm-hmm.
the organization I chose. So I
Mm-hmm.
understood that it was something that, I needed to deal with at that particular time. Right. I knew
Mm-hmm.
it was something I needed to do with at that particular time. So as soon as I started to, like, get to that point of accepting it, I started telling myself it had happened. It had already happened, right? I needed
Mm-hmm.
to, like, get out of that situation. The more I forced myself to understand that it happened and I needed to get out of it, the faster my healing came. And also having someone going through the same situation kind of like hastened up my own process as well.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say to be the same for other people, because the way we handle grief is different. Some people it
Different.
takes longer,
Absolutely.
but in my own case, I would say it took about at least 2 months to kind of,
Accept
walk myself
the
back to the
reality.
point of acceptance. But like I said, the journey towards acceptance is never a straight
Linear.
journey. Some
It's
days
not
you feel
linear.
like you're there. Some days you feel like you're there, you're out of it already. But it just takes
Yes.
one thing to trigger you
To
back,
take it
and then you find yourself going back,
exactly.
back the hill, like you're going uphill again, and
Exactly.
you're walking all the way down again. So
Yes, you're
it's
absolutely correct.
it's a challenging situation. So yeah,
Hmm.
it varies with people. It depends on personality. It depends on how much support you're also able to get at that particular time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, for me, it was. Did it feel free? Yes, it did, but it didn't come. That feeling of freedom didn't come immediately. It was after maybe a few days, and I began to say, well, maybe the weight of being stressed by the job, working at 3 a.m., working weekends. Well, maybe it wasn't. It was meant for me to rest. However, like you said, the weight of losing your income, losing your job, it weighed more than the weight of freedom. Sorry, it weighed more
Yeah,
than the feeling of freedom. So yeah,
yeah,
did I feel free? Kind of. Now for me, acceptance came way later.
yeah,
I was depressed. I
yeah.
was literally depressed. It took a few months. In fact, it took my friend coming. My friend had to visit. She told me that her husband heard when we were speaking over the phone, and her husband said, "You have to go be with her." So she came all the way. She surprised me. She came all the way, like 5 days after the news, or 4 days after the news, to be with me all the way from like Toronto, and that was like 4 hours from Perth where
Mhm.
I was. And when she came, it was so interesting because before she came, I wasn't eating. I was only ordering McDonald's like pop and wrap. I wouldn't finish the wrap, but I would just gulp on a lot of pop. But when she came, she brought food, and one significant thing was when she came, she brought food, and in that space of like 1 hour after she came, I ate 4 slices of bread. I don't eat a lot in one go, just to show you. I'm just trying to paint a picture or paint the picture. I ate 4 slices of bread in one sitting and a full plate, actually 2 plates of rice. My friend was looking at me like, "Are you okay?" That was
You were
because
stress eating, probably stress eating at that time.
at that time, because I hadn't eaten in a while, I didn't even know that my body needed it. I didn't even know. My body had been starved of food, but I didn't even know. I didn't even know that I needed that human like presence. Because when she came, I
Yeah,
hugged her and then she was making me laugh. I didn't even know that I needed that. So it was such an indication that when you're going through something like that, this is my own recommendation, do not be by yourself. I know you may need
yeah,
some time to take, but if it means going to visit a friend and coming back, going to visit, like just distracting yourself and look for, of course, people that you love and people that you know who love you, I think that's my recommendation. Anyway, was it a feeling of freedom? When did I accept it? I only accepted it after my friend had left 2 months or 3 months after. We'll get to that. But let's go
yeah, for
through,
sure.
through the questions.
And I
Um
wanted to say something just before we go into the next question.
yes,
There's something in us that is so different. Like the typical African blood has a way of, pulling us out of such situation. Like we normally say there's a slang, Ninjano they carry last.
yeah,
There's always that feeling of you can do it. You can get out of the situation. But that's not to negate the fact that you will process, you have to go through that emotions.
yeah,
So I'm saying this because I don't know whoever might be listening to this video. I don't know whoever might be encountering this. Always have it in mind that you need support. As much as you feel like you're Nigerian, you can pull through situations. You also still need support. Nothing ever prepares you for such situation.
very important. Very important. You need the support of your loved ones. You need the support of your friends. You need to tap. Even if you are someone who did not, ask for support or ask for, please. We're not saying that this is gonna happen to you, but for those who are currently going through it, and if it ever happens to you, remember that we said tap into the support that you have. I can go on, if I can be a whole different discussion about the support that I received during that time. I don't know. My
Absolutely.
friend hadn't visited the time she visited. I don't know if I'll be speaking on this topic right now. I probably have been checked into one mental facility because that moment helped me. I was slowly going. I hadn't showered in 4 days. I hadn't
Mm,
brushed my teeth I was just waking up, staying on my bed, be on the phone, sleep, rinse, wash, repeat. And if she hadn't come that day, I would have gone deep into the hole that I was slowly going into. Anyway,
mm.
all right.
Yeah,
We're going.
that's a sad experience. Sad
Oh,
to hear that.
very, very sad. Very sad. All right. We're going to go into the financial fallout that the job loss brings.
My car, if I was gonna get gas, I would get $10 gas as opposed
Yeah,
to like like that was more like I was more like gauging the amount of fuel, the gas I
yeah,
was putting in my car, which was
yeah,
kind of strange.
yeah,
I would go to the store if I was to get something of $5. I would look for a cheaper alternative.
yeah.
I would walk around the store. I was spending more time shopping because I needed to check the.
For the first time in 9 years of living abroad, my internet was cut off. I couldn't buy. There was a particular time I couldn't buy a case of water that was $3 for something. I had to boil water. I had planned to go to Nigeria 2 weeks after I lost my job. I had booked my ticket. I had planned for my mom's 15th year death anniversary. And as
Wow,
soon
that's
as I lost my job, I cancelled that trip. So that trauma
wow.
also